Hey, what's going on? I'm a Legomist, and today we're going to be looking at Rakka Viletide, a Void Legendary champion who provides your team with a cleanse and increased attack on the same ability. She's a great champion that often gets compared to Duchess and Pythion, and I think with Live Arena, she's going to have a huge value surge. Let's go over her kit, and we can talk about where I use her the most, and then I can give you a general impression. For my Rakka, I have her built in a 1-turn Stone Skin set, as well as 2 counterattack accessories. We'll talk about the reason I have those accessories later, but for her total stats, she has 70k HP, 3.2k defense, 267 speed, and 491 resistance. I don't have all of her gear fully ascended or upgraded yet, so she'll be sitting around roughly 75k HP, 3.4k defense, a little bit above 270 speed, and over 500 resistance. So she's built pretty well for the end game, and I'm hoping to use her specifically in Live Arena. For her AA1, she goes in and attacks one enemy and heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of her max HP. So you want to try and build her with as much HP as you can so that this heal heals up a champion as much as possible. Her A2 also comes in on a 3-turn cooldown. She cleanses her whole team, places increased attack, and then she also places a shield equal to 25% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. With the extra books in this, you're actually getting a 30% shield from this champion's max HP, so it's a pretty substantial shield if you build her with a lot of HP. Again, with her A1 and A2 based off of her max HP, you want to make sure that you build her with extremely high HP. Also, if you're using her specifically for arena like I am, you're going to want to get that HP as high as possible because enemies are going to either have savage gear so that they ignore defense, or they're going to bring in nukers that automatically ignore defense. Having her built with high HP will help her sustain against those types of champions, as well as give the whole team a giant shield and a big heal from the A1. Her A3 ability goes in and revives all dead allies with 50% HP and turn meter, and then places block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns, and this is on a 4-turn cooldown. So right there, her skill sounds awesome, but the issue comes in where it says we'll place the block debuffs even if there are no dead allies. This really kills Rakka when you're using her on auto, as she's going to go in and prioritize this move if your team doesn't have block debuffs, so you're essentially wasting the revive to get a block debuffs on a 4-turn cooldown, which really isn't a great skill. Rakka also has a passive, and on a 2-turn cooldown, at the start of each turn, she'll fill the turn meter of all allies by 10%. This is really nice if you're using her in arena, and it'll help your team get that little extra boost of turn meter so that they can cycle through their abilities a little bit faster than the enemy. This is also great when you use her in Hydra because she'll help the whole team throughout the long duration of that Hydra fight, increase their turn meter, and again get back to their skills and do more damage. The issue that comes around with some sort of fill like this on a 2-turn cooldown is that it can be kind of hard to speed tune her for a regular clan boss team though. Her passive is actually really nice if you're using her for arena. At the start of each turn, she'll place a continuous heal buff on the lowest ally for 2 turns. The only issue again with this skill, it won't place the continuous heal buff on herself, so she has to rely on the A1s to heal her if she's low. Rakka also brings in the same ally speed in all battles by 19% that Duchess and champions like Cardiel have. So this is a really nice ally aura for speed in all battles. For blessings, I have my Rakka in Cruelty because I had her in Brimstone and then the nerf happened, so I just wanted to switch her over to something else. But I'd say putting her in Polymorph if you're doing PvP is the best, and if you're doing PvE specifically, something like Cruelty could help you get that little bit of extra damage. One of the nice things about Rakka is the fact that she only takes 10 total books. The other nice thing is, if you're lucky, you can land books in the A2 and A3, and you really don't need the extra book in the passive or for her A1. For her Masteries, we have her going down the defense and support tree, and then I wanted to make sure that I grabbed Shield Bearer for extra shield, and then anything that would help me either increase the duration of my buffs that I'm placing on my allies, or things that could potentially help increase the amount of healing and shield that Rakka is able to provide for the team. Under the defense tree, we grab the resistance, and then we go down to tier 6 for unshakable for the extra 50 resistance. One of the things that I highly recommend grabbing for a support champion is something like Shadow Heal. It heals this champion by 6% of their max HP each time an enemy is healed, and it occurs once per turn. The nice thing about this ability, if you're going up against champions like Pythion or Rakka or Cardiel, their A1s all have a heal, and those champions typically aren't built to deal damage. When you go up against someone that has Shadow Heal, you might actually heal them when using a champion like Pythion, because you'll attack them for maybe 3% of their health, but if they're healing for 6%, they're actually gaining additional health than they had before. So this is a sneaky mastery you can grab for your really tanky champions in order to keep them alive for a little bit longer. We also have her going down, getting Cycle of Revenge for the turn meter, and then I grabbed Retribution so that we can get a 50% chance to attack, use the A1, and then heal up even more. Like I said, I have the 2 accessories for counterattack specifically so that I can use the A1 even more and we can get even more healing out to our team. Since Rakka has been released, we've gotten Pythion and Ukko as other champions that are able to provide revives. I think Ukko kind of falls into a different type of support champion that also has a revive, and he's not so much a champion that's able to keep your team sustained, but someone like Pythion is a very clear champion that you can compare to someone like Rakka. Again, Rakka and Duchess are also very comparable, so I think when we talk about Rakka, we're going to be directly comparing her to both Duchess and Pythion. Fortunately, I have Duchess and Pythion, so when I'm talking about Rakka, I'm directly comparing her to both of those champions from the experience that I have. Both of those champions are also built specifically for PvP, as well as my Rakka, so when I'm talking about the champions, again, they're going to be talked about in the fashion of endgame PvP. So when we bring Rakka in for stage 21 of Faction Wars, we can kind of see the idea of this champion is really great, and when you look at all of her skills on paper, she's a solid champion. She comes in with a res, she comes in with a cleanse, increase attack, a big shield based on her health, and she comes in with block debuffs. The issue is, when you try and actually use her, her kit is very wonky in the way that it was designed. The block debuffs isn't with the cleanse ability, so you come in, you have the chance to place the cleanse, but then the enemy can still debuff you before you're able to place the block debuffs. Her passive comes in and she provides the continuous heals on allies, and the issue is, again, for Faction Wars, we can see clearly she's going to place these continuous heals on the allies, which is great, but then the boss steals them because this specific faction has a boss that steals buffs, and the boss is able to heal up. So if you don't have a champion like Seer or someone that can strip buffs for the orcs, you're running into the issue of the boss healing when Rakka's on the team. So we can see there the boss stole all of our buffs and now has 2 continuous heals. Our Seer already used their strip, so we're going to run into the issue of the boss healing. Again, my team is built, they're all 60s and they're built pretty well, so it's not too much of an issue that they're healing, but if this is an earlier stage of Faction Wars for you, it might be a little difficult for you to clear it. So we can see that was actually my fastest time clearing stage 21, which is awesome. Rakka does come in and provide a bunch of buffs, so if you have a Seer, she works really well for Faction Wars. The only issue that is really present is the fact that the continuous heals go out and the boss has the chance to steal them. If you don't have Seer, or your Seer is timed up poorly with when the boss steals those buffs, you might come into the issue of the boss healing, and then the run might take a little bit longer than you would expect. Let's bring in Rakka against a team like this and see how we do. The main purpose of having her in the team, if they place the block buffs from Ukko, we'll be able to go in and cleanse, and then we have the increased attack from her as well. Alright, so we go first here, and then you can kind of see we were able to get that turn meter fill, and it might have just been enough where our candy is actually able to go before most of their damage dealers. The Seeker might be a little bit faster than him though, so let's go in, we'll place the shield and increase attack. So we can see right there, the Ukko placed the block buffs on our team, and it really is just kind of an issue with Rakka's kit, right? Like, I want to get that increased attack on my team, but if the enemy is going to debuff us before we go, we run into the issue of getting the increased attack, which we want, but we don't have our cleanse anymore, and I can't place block debuffs anymore because they have the block buffs on us. So the kit is just kind of a little weird to use. Let's go in against this team and we can kind of look at the differences between if we had a Duchess versus a Rakka. Okay, they get to go first and they do their cleanse ability, and we're kind of left in this situation where we can go in and place the increased attack if we want, but we might run into the issue where we get the Hex on us and then Rakka's not able to go and place the block debuffs. So again, I'm kind of left in this situation where do I place the block debuffs now and have it on her and our Necrit, or do I go in and place the increased attack? I'm going to go in and place the increased attack because hopefully my Necrit can go in and protect the Rakka with it, so we get the block debuffs from him, but if we didn't, we'd be kind of in a bit of an issue. Yeah, so now we can see we've got the Hex on our Necrit, and it seems like we're gonna have to waste our res ability by just placing the block debuffs on him. And it looks like this Rotos hits pretty hard too, so we might be in a bit of an issue here. The Hex went out, so now we're running into that issue that I was talking about where we use the cleanse, but we don't have the block debuffs up. We get petrification on all of our champions, except for the ultimate Death Knight, but it's just awkward. That's like, I think that's the best way to describe her kit. We'll go in, we can cleanse it off now, and we're fine. All right, so we ended up taking this team down just about 6 minutes probably by the time we get it done. I did a couple battles in live arena, and I just wanted to show the broad brush strokes of what happened. And interestingly enough, the first fight that I had, my Rakka actually got banned over my Duchess, and the enemy team was able to take us down. I brought in Cardiel for the ally attack, but the enemy team was kind of able to cycle through their abilities a little bit quicker than us, and the Kymar would kind of strip us at horrible times, and we couldn't do enough to take their team out. We got pretty close at one point, but they ended up kind of overpowering us. So we went in, we did another fight. Again, this one, it was a bad choice on my part. I chose Kymar as my third support champion, and he didn't really do anything for the team. So if I could go back, you know, I would have chose someone else, probably like Necrit or someone, but they just kind of nuked us down really quick. We didn't have enough sustain for our Rotos, and they win. And then again, I bring in Rakka. They ban her this time again, so that's like 2 bans already that they've done on her. And we had the Georgid on the other team that we ban, and we go in, we end up placing bombs on their whole team, and I think we get the pretty easy win here. Yeah, so we placed the bombs on them, and I think that guy kind of just didn't have the champions for live arena, so we got pretty lucky there. And then once more, we bring in Rakka. This time we bring in Pythion with her, and we have the Necrit and Baron combo, so a pretty awesome team for us. We ban their Warlord just so that they can't mess with us, and all of our champions are single target, so we should be good. And as you can kind of see, we go in and we just kind of like out-sustain them with the 2 single target support champions that also provide heals too, which is really nice. And Rakka's shield as well is really nice for our team. So we end up taking them out pretty easily. It's a long fight, but we weren't really in any danger of losing. And then the next fight, we go in again. We've got Rakka and Pythion. This time we have the Baron, but no Necrit, which can kind of prove to be pretty difficult for me because my Baron's not built with any sort of sustain. This fight was actually pretty interesting. It really showed me the power of Pythion and Rakka in the same team, and I think you can kind of see it pretty well too. So they go in, they get the strip and the block debuffs on our champions, as well as the stun on Pythion. But we go in, we get the cleanse from Rakka, as well as the big shields, and then we see the issue that she has, right? The Torment on the other team places the freeze on my Candy, but then Pythion can come in, he can cleanse that, and then place the block debuffs. So they kind of worked hand in hand there, which was really nice. And then I was able to go in, I bring up the Baron with my Pythion, he gets the freeze on him again, so he can't do much good. But then they take out one of my champions again, and I go in, I place the block debuffs and the revive, and we're chilling, and then we end up taking out the whole team. So the Pythion and Rakka combo worked really well there. We can see this next one, we go in. Once again, they ban the Rakka, which is pretty surprising. And then I just kind of made the wrong choice there. I didn't ban the Warlord because I was a little worried about the Nithwe, and they went in, they kind of wrecked my team, and it was all over from there. But once again, they banned the Rakka over the Duchess and the Pythion, which is pretty interesting. And we have another fight here. Again, they banned the Rakka, but they let me keep my Pythion, which was pretty interesting because we're going up against a Bomber and Gaius, and I would have thought that you know, Pythion being weak affinity, you'd probably want to keep him off the table and keep Rakka, who's void. Yeah, we can see the battle log here. We ended up, out of 6 fights, we win 4 of them, and they banned Rakka in about 3 of them. So pretty interesting to say the least. She ended up getting banned quite a bit, and she got banned substantially more than Pythion and Duchess whenever they were also on the team. So I don't know if it's that people don't necessarily know her whole kit and they get nervous about her or what, but we ended up getting a few wins with her in the team, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with her, and I think she's a very viable live arena champion. And if you don't have Duchess, she's an excellent replacement for her in live arena, especially if you have a champion like Pythion. We're going to try a team for Ice Golem 10 hard, and we're going to try a speed team here. So we have Seer and Kymar for the waves. Rakka is providing us with the increased attack and shield buffs so that Seer can strip them off, along with Elva's buffs from the increased speed and block debuffs. And then the whole goal of having Rakka in the team, she's going to provide us with the A1 heals, so that way when we go up against the boss, if he slams us, she's able to heal us passively with that, along with the 25% max HP shield that she provides too. So the thought is that she's going to provide us with a little bit more sustain, and then between her and Elva, we should be able to get the increased speed, Rakka's passive, which increases our turn meter every 2 turns, and then the continuous heals from her. I think it might be actually a pretty solid team. Typically I have Tyrant in the slot that Rakka's in, because he has a 5-star Brimstone, so it's protected, but I want to see how the team does. It might actually be more sustainable than any other team I've tried, and I think it might actually work pretty well, so let's see how it does. Okay, so we can see after the run, just under 3 minutes 30 seconds, which is pretty nice, and she did a pretty similar amount of healing compared to Elva. Not as much, but she also provides the shield for our champions, and I think when you see this run without the Rakka shields, it gets a little bit more interesting, because the boss has the chance to crit us, and then without Rakka in there to provide the extra sustain, it might not be as consistent. So pretty interesting, and I actually think that run is probably just about as close to 100% as we could get. The only issue is that Rakka has the counterattack on her accessories, and then she also has it in the Masteries. So if I was building her specifically to help out with Ice Golem, I would get rid of all of that stuff. So this time I'm actually going to bring in a champion like Riho, and Riho provides us with a huge heal as well as a block debuffs. And I just want to compare the two between Riho and Rakka. Alright, we can see this run was just about 10 seconds faster, so slightly faster, but I don't know if you all noticed it, and I'll try and do my best to make sure that it was slowed down during the boss waves, but the boss ended up getting our Elva and Riho down to about 50% HP a couple times, and the issue that we have is the fact that we're not getting that shield that Rakka provides us. While we are getting more heals from Riho, it's not really doing us any good if we're healing a whole bunch when we're at 3/4 of our health, when in reality we want to just heal a little bit and then have some sort of extra buffer, so that way we can go in with a shield or something like that, provide our team with the ability to sustain a little bit longer, and we'll be fine. And the fact that it's on a 3-turn cooldown with the shield is pretty nice. So yeah, I think overall, I think she's probably going to be more consistent than a champion like Riho. Okay, we're going to try one more Ice Golem run. This time we have Mithrala. The only issue with my Mithrala is she might be a little bit too slow for the boss, but we have her prioritizing the shield that she gives us, and then she'll go in with the increased defense on the other ability. So we can see how this one does. So with Mithrala, we do just over 4 minutes, and we could see again, because she was a little bit slower than we need her to be, she wasn't giving us as much of the shield as we could have gotten, and our champions got a little bit low. She did get very low in the very beginning, but I think if your Mithrala is built specifically with above 250 speed, you should be pretty fine. The main issue with Mithrala though, and I think the reason you're not going to want to bring her in if you're trying to do a 99 or 100% speed run team, is the fact that her A1 brings you poisons. Everything else on her kit is perfect for this. She provides the increased defense, she provides a shield, and then the only issue is the fact that she brings the poisons, which means that the side adds are going to die faster, and you're not going to get as many HP burns on them, which means that Drang's not going to do as much damage, and it'll be a little bit slower. So I think inherently she's not going to be as fast as some of the other champions that you could bring in, because she's taking down the side adds a little bit faster. So I think as far as teams that you want for Ice Golem 10 hard, she's actually a fantastic champion to make sure you get over that line of near 100% win rate with a speed team. So she's actually really solid for this. If my Drang was booked up, it'd probably be closer to 45 seconds faster, and it would be under sub 3 minutes. So she's actually really great for this. I think if you had the right speeds and everything, you might even be able to get away with her with the block debuffs on her A3 ability and then the cleanse. The only issue is that you'd be bringing back Kymar and Seer. It might make it a little bit slower, but she's actually a pretty solid champion if you want to try and use her for Ice Golem. So my recording messed up the audio, so I have the video, but the audio is trash, so I just muted it, and I wanted to kind of show you guys what I had for my Hydra teams that I used. This is my hard Hydra team that I typically use. The slot that Rakka's in right now was actually used by Pythion before, and I wanted to see how the team did with her in that slot, and then I tried it out with Duchess as well. So we're gonna go in, we can kind of see how the run goes with her. And yeah, it was pretty rocky to start off, and I think just this rotation in general is pretty tough. So I got 16 mil the first time I did it, and then I kind of reran it a couple times, and I ended up choosing, I said, okay, I'm just gonna select the heads and see how the run does this time instead. And when we click on the heads, it actually got to about 29 million. The runs did get a little wonky though, and I think the main reason for that, Rakka, her passive, like on paper it seems really nice because she places a continuous heal buff for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest HP, but it can't go on her, and it's going to go on whoever has the lowest HP, which means it's random in a sense. So the head of mischief that can steal your buffs and then spread them, he's going to choose random champions on your team. So if one champion has high resistance and everyone else has low resistance, more than likely the champion's going to get their buffs stolen, and then the run's going to be a lot more difficult. So that was one of the main issues that I saw with her and her passive, and it's kind of a theme with her whole kit where on paper she seems really good, but in practice you kind of struggle with it. So I ended up doing this run, it got 29 million. We did a run with Uko. Again, this one, it petered out around 23 mil. We got pretty unlucky there, but we did a run with Duchess as well, and we got about 17 mil or so. Again, these were just like the first run or two that I did, and pretty much full auto, clicked on the heads, but we can have a lot better RNG. The Head of Torment I don't think popped up for any of our runs except for this run. I think it popped up once, but otherwise it completely went away, and Sham just did nothing for the team really. So we got pretty unlucky on that, but I just wanted to show you all. I did try her out in Hydra, and again, on paper her kit seems pretty good, but because of that passive, it throws a little bit of extra randomness in the favor of the Hydra heads, and it makes it a little more difficult for you. So if you're on lower stages and the Head of Mischief isn't out there, you should be fine. Or if you're going in and you have high resistance on pretty much all of your champions, you should be okay to bring her in. So my overall thoughts for Rakka, she's a great champion if you're using her on manual, but she does have some weird quirks that make her just a little bit below champions like Duchess and Pythion. The biggest draw to me when I'm trying to choose a champion for live arena and I have the choice between Rakka and someone like Pythion, I think the two biggest factors are probably the cleanse and block debuffs on the same skill. That way I can protect my whole team and then keep them protected for a certain amount of turns. as opposed to Rakka being able to come in with the cleanse, and then the enemy are still able to go in and debuff our champions. So I think that's kind of a negative for her. But I think the other biggest negative is the fact that Pythion and Duchess both have those passives that decrease the amount of damage your team takes. When I use her for live arena, I run into the issue of, do I want to bring in Duchess, Pythion, and Rakka as my 3 types of support champions? Or do I want to bring in just Duchess so that I have the perfect veil, block debuffs, increase attack, as well as a revive, and then Pythion for the cleanse and block debuffs, and then the A1 that heals us? Or do I want to go in and have a champion that kind of does a little bit of both of those? The other thing too, both of those champions that I said, Pythion and Duchess, have that passive that mitigates damage, where Rakka doesn't have a passive that mitigates damage, but it does help your team sustain. I do find that in live arena though, I like to bring in the champion Cardiel because he has the cleanse and block debuffs, an ally attack, and an A1 that heals. I think he actually pairs really well with Rakka. The reason being, he can go in and he can use his cleanse and block debuffs with a revive on death skill, and then Rakka can go in, also do a cleanse, do the increase attack and the shield. So they're both kind of providing your team with like the cleanse and block debuff slot, and then she also goes in, does the increase attack and a shield. So it's kind of like using them together is a little bit of using Duchess and Pythion's abilities, but you only get 1 reviver and you get the ally attack and the heals. So I think they provide a little bit more sustain. The other thing about Cardiel, he also decreases the damage your team takes from Demon Spawn, Undead, and Knight's Revenant. So he kind of fills in a little bit for that damage mitigation slot that you get from Pythion and Duchess. Pythion comes in and he's able to give the cleanse and block debuffs, which is awesome, but not having increased attack really kills your team's damage, and it makes it very difficult to try and take out the enemy. With a champion like Rakka though, you can go in, give your team that big shield and the increased attack to try and help take down the enemy. So I think when you pair Pythion and Cardiel, you're getting a little bit too much overlap in the champions as far as the cleanse and block debuff skill. So you're kind of wasting one of their abilities, where with Rakka, you're at least getting the increased attack and a big shield. So I think those two pair a little bit better than Pythion and Cardiel do. So I try and bring her in more so when I'm bringing in Cardiel. I'd say if you're late game and you already have Pythion and Duchess, you're probably not going to need Rakka realistically. If you only have one of those champions, I would say that it's probably really nice to build up Rakka, but she might not be an absolute priority unless you're trying to focus specifically on live arena. I'd say overall this champion's pretty solid, but you get a lot more utility from her when you either have presets that can help you define what she's doing when, or if you're using her on manual. If you use her on manual, I'd say she's probably like an A tier champion, but if you're using her on auto, she's probably like a B, maybe B minus, because she's not really providing a lot and she can kind of be wonky with what she chooses to use. Overall, I'm pretty happy that I built and booked my Rakka. I think she's a very unique champion, and I think for live arena, she's going to get a lot of play the more and more I test her out. I think if I could, I would try and get her HP as high as possible, but until then, I'll probably just use her where she's at, and I'll use her as one of those replacements if someone tries to ban my Duchess. That's all I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you did, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.